You're listening to The Conversation with Model Mind AI, a weekly check-in with Angela Schultz and Loren Horsager on how to lead through change, stay curious, and get AI ready.
Welcome back to The Conversation. I'm Angela Schultz, here as always with Loren Horsager from Model Mind AI. Welcome, Loren.
Hey, Angela.
In our last episode, you and I had a long discussion about memory in ChatGPT, and today we're building on that concept by talking about one of the most useful and often misunderstood tools in the AI space right now, custom GPTs, or also known as Copilot agents, depending on your platform of choice. So whether you're leading a company or a department, custom GPTs are the most accessible way to really build your own AI experience or assistance. No coding required. In fact, OpenAI just announced that it's making ChatGPT available to US federal agencies, which means more leaders than ever now have access to the paid tools that let you build GPTs directly. So in today's episode, we'll explore why GPTs are gaining momentum, the four most practical types to build, and how to help you understand Copilot agents as well as agents. And a pro tip for using them smarter, even before memory is fully released. So let's dive in. What is the big excitement around custom GPTs?
Well, this is not new, right? I think it's interesting in your message there. One of the challenges is what are we calling all this stuff, right? And I think that's part of the problem. So what is a custom GPT, first of all? So custom GPTs are specific to ChatGPT, to OpenAI, but we can do the same thing in other platforms. They're just called something different. But basically, we can take our underlying model and then we can add instructions and content to that, right? So basically, we're putting together what we call our custom brain, right? So we're building our context for what this is meant to do. When we talk about these large language models, they're really meant to perform anything, right? So I can ask it, a coding question. I can ask it a marketing question. I can ask it a personal question, and all of them, it's going to give me a response, and it's meant to give me a response. It might not always be right on some things, but if I give it enough information, it should give me a pretty good response in almost every possible area, right? And when we're building these custom GPTs, we're trying to get to a much narrower focus on, I want a custom GPT that is my HR agent for the organization, and it's going to answer HR related questions. One of the things is if someone asks it a question that's not HR, I want it to not respond or tell it can't respond to that question, right? Mm-hmm. So we're narrowing the focus, but we're giving it more information and more instructions around what we want it to do well.
Yeah, I just had an engagement with a customer earlier today who'd been in my class for 101 and had really become a power user and was pretty fluent in all things ChatGPT, but he was struggling with jumping from being a CEO versus being a dad. And I think custom GPTs are a way to handle that because there's so much crossover in our personal and professional use. So by building out these GPTs, you're kind of locking in that context without having to add that context to a singular prompt over and over again. So really nice way to kind of manage different roles within your company that you play, or like you mentioned, maybe you don't have an HR director and you're able to kind of build that perspective and that role into your department, which can be beneficial.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic. I think this also goes to the point of people complain that AI is not always right, right? Well, why isn't it right? And it's usually because we haven't given it enough information to fully understand that. So if we narrow the context, but then add in all the information to actually make sure that it has what it needs to answer those questions, the probability that the AI is right goes up drastically. We're approaching 100%, not 100%, but very close to 100% in most cases there. And if we're not, that goes into our testing conversation, which we've talked about earlier, about how do we test this and make sure we're answering the questions right, providing the information that it needs to solve problems. So, yeah, I think it's very interesting. This is a very critical point, both for getting good answers, for sharing a perspective and a context, right? So we're building that custom brain, then we're going to share it with our team potentially, or a client, or whatever the case might be. But it's also the foundation for where this is going and why we keep, really pounding away on why it's important to build these and get familiar with this. This is the future as we talk about agents, and we're going to continue talking about agents a lot here over the next few months because it's a really big deal. But to start to build agents, you first have to be able to build, and I mean true agents. This is the language issue again. Microsoft calls all these agents, and it's not really true in the sense that they're talking more like a custom GPT. But when we talk true agents and multi-agentic systems, how do we do that? It all comes down to what we're talking about, building a good custom GPT or a custom agent, Copilot agent.
It is such a strong foundation of understanding. So if you can understand a custom GPT and how the instructions drive the behaviors, it's going to help you then when that agent gets handed to you, you're going to know how to interact. You're going to know what feedback you need to give so that you can even make a better agent or so that it's more efficient or helpful. So I really think this is a foundational aspect of what's going to happen in the future. So if you can start by using AI in your everyday life and becoming a power user, and then jump into building these custom GPTs, you're kind of taking that stairway up to an agentic system, which is exciting.
Yep. And the other thing to think about, there's nothing we're doing in this process that's technical. You're on a web page, you're putting in some information, but it's all about the personal response to questions and how we set that context, all in natural language. There's no coding involved. There's no technical aspect to this. It is all about going to a website and just and getting it to convey the right message. It's very much more about thinking about how do we learn and how do we then set up the GPT to do what it needs to do effectively? And then how do we communicate that properly? It's such a communication challenge is usually where they go wrong.
And I find that in our building of custom GPTs, you really expand people's idea of what is possible with using AI. And that's where I see a lot of the light bulb goes off is, oh, I could do this, I could do that. And it's really an extension of their prompting experience. And now they're building out these custom GPTs or Copilot agents. And honestly, ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot do a pretty good job of building out some templates or some examples. If you go onto any of their platforms, you'll see other GPTs or agents that people have built. I always caution people, and I think it's better to build your own. And so in class, we just dive right in and start designing and building and kind of workshopping what they need and kind of filling that gap or that point of friction with this GPT to help them. So if you're out there and you're using somebody else's GPT, I really encourage you to try to build your own. I think you're going to be shocked at how easy it is and how quickly you can provide feedback and edit it so that it keeps becoming better and better for your use case.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We're all of these tools now do have like an AI builder, and the AI will build it for you, but the solution is so much better if you go do it yourself. And there's kind of a checklist of things, right? And we've talked about that some before, and we'll talk about that more. But if you really need to make sure you're hitting all these things, and the AI doesn't always get that right, so then it doesn't give you the results you want. So if you're doing it yourself, which super easy, it's just write your instructions are really the critical part, and make sure you're providing the content. And if you do that, you will get good results.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have a class coming up where I've designed 4 different categories. Can I speak to these 4 categories?
Yeah, I'd love to hear your 4.
Okay. So there's a couple different ways I look at these GPTs, and just from my experience in class and hearing all of the different ways people have thought about GPTs and built them out, I've kind of put them into four different categories. And the first category we start with are called optimizer GPTs, and it's really where we take a task and just build a GPT to complete that task. So I see it more as a tool. So for example, if you need research to be done on a company or a product, you can build a specific research GPT or a data analyst GPT. These are great for completing a task. A lot of people in class will build the data analyzer, and before a big board meeting or an event that they have coming up that they need to communicate progress, they'll grab onto this GPT. It's already built and designed within the context, and it has their information, their data sets. And so it also has the instructions of how they want to receive that information, right? So we all have our own communication style. Each company has their own language that they use. So that can all be baked into these GPTs as a tool that you can grab throughout the day. So great for efficiency and productivity. Those are phenomenal. And I would say those are some pretty good places to start, because we all have those tasks that we complete in our workflows, and it's a great one. But my favorite is the one I call Dialogic. I'm trying to include the idea of dialogue, but also knowledge and logic. And this is Loren. One of the first times I met, you gave me a demo of your sales pitch GPT. Do you want to speak to that one?
Sure. So I have a demo when I do a lot of public speaking around uh, basically it is a sales coach. And so there's three stages to it, right? So the first stage is what who is the client you're about to call, and then you can kind of fill out it dialogues, and the GPT asks you questions to actually get deeper into who you're calling, what they're looking for, and you're kind of setting up what the call looks like. Then when you're done with that, it moves into the second stage, which the AI actually acts like that person, and they will play the client for you, and now you can call them. It's like you're calling them and having a conversation, and actually going through your sales pitch. And then at the end of that, it will actually go through and analyze your pitch and give you feedback on things you did well, things you didn't do well. It's pretty funny. Our friend Nicole in Florida, I was driving with her the first time, and she was actually driving the car, and we almost went in the ditch when she saw this, because it was all voice enabled too, right? So we're sitting there talking on the phone, and it's giving us this feedback and asking us questions, and just like a conversation. And she was so shocked that she almost drove us in the ditch. But it was she's a good driver, but she was too excited because she's a salesperson. She's like, "How did you do this?" So they actually went and then built one for their company to do that process, right? So that dialoguing is such an important thing to actually get to the right information, so that the AI knows what to do with it. And while we're on this one, maybe I'll ask you, we were just talking before this about ChatGPT 5 is just out, and one of the things people are noticing is it likes to dialogue maybe too much. How do you stop? How do you go the other way? Like when it's talking too much, how do you like get it to consolidate and actually get to some of the content you're trying to create or what you're trying to do?
I mean, in it, my favorite word is concise. Is a lot of times it's just a single word, concise, and then it kind of picks up what I'm laying down and it'll adjust for me. But yeah, I mean, we were talking about this earlier. When I first started using ChatGPT, I put into my personalization, like, ask me as many questions, expand my thinking. I really wanted it to push me. But now I feel like the default model is doing that, and I don't need to request that anymore. Now it's almost the pendulum has swung too far, and I need to kind of rein it in. You know, one thing we talk about in our prompting strategies are parameters and constraints, which, if you know the right language, it's a pretty easy tweak. But that could be built into this Dialogic as well. You make a good point, though, because that actually brings me to my third category, which are you have the ability to share a GPT that you built. So I call these team GPTs. And the idea is, imagine you have a new hire, and if you're able to build an onboarding or a mentor style GPT for your company or for your team, imagine uploading all of the knowledge of your company and then handing this off to a new employee. They don't have to bother you or wait till the next team meeting. They can hop onto this custom GPT built just for your company, and they can prompt and ask questions and gain insights. It's going to build their confidence, but it's also going to save you a lot of time um, in the mentor process. Or maybe that mentorship process can really be used for higher level concepts and not just the day-to-day. What about this? Where's this? How do I say this? Or get them aligned with your branding language immediately too. It can be really powerful. Sometimes it takes a while to pick up on the vibe of a company or the language the company uses. So great opportunity to do some shared GPTs.
We've seen that a lot with like younger employees in organizations where having a GPT that's preloaded with all your content about how you work and like what you do and stuff is really, really powerful because they very much generally don't want to go ask their boss questions that they don't know yet, and they really have no reason to know. But if they can go talk to an AI to actually get feedback on that, and the AI is solid and been tested and really gets them to that, it just saves a lot of time. But you're training them in the right way with your information, which is super powerful for those younger employees that are they want to do well and they want to interact, but they don't really want to look stupid in front of their boss. They don't want to ask certain questions, and they're willing to go have that conversation with AI.
Yeah, and this is something we actually utilize in our classes as well. So for example, if I teach a one-day workshop, it's hard to absorb all that information in a single day training. So I will oftentimes share a GPT I call Angela on Demand, right? And it's uploaded with all of the knowledge and content that we shared in class that day. So maybe a week later they can come back to it and prompt off of it, and just to get those refreshers or ask a question that they maybe didn't have in class, but it came to them later. So great opportunity to kind of capture content knowledge and then provide that for your team in a shared capacity, or maybe even out to your clients, right? It wouldn't have to be internal. This could be external. Now, warning, if you go external share, you definitely want to make sure that your instructions include constraints, like if they ask a question outside the purview of the GPT, how do you want it to respond? Things like that. So we're not, that we have some pretty strong boundaries on our shared GPTs is really important. And I don't know if you want to speak to prompt injectors. We dabble in that in class a little bit, but that's more of a developer concern, is being able to break a GPT.
In some ways, it's a developer concern, but if you're pushing out a GPT for people other than your team, I would be aware of it. So basically, this is where, let's say you put a whole bunch of content into like a chat bot or a GPT, something like that. And if you haven't put in there that people can't override your instructions on how it's supposed to interact, they can basically get direct access to all that content without going through the channels that you're trying to do. That's basically what prompt injection allows you to do. Now, this is a big deal when it comes to workflows. It's a big deal when it comes to agents. It's a big deal if you're sharing your GPT. So it's something to be aware of. There's a lot of information out there on how, like, there's ways to fix this. It's just making sure you're including the prompts to actually handle those situations where you don't want it giving all your information away in just any way. You want it to deliver in how you're trying to force the GPT to think. So.
Sure, sure. And actually, I love that you mentioned workflows and agents, because to me, this is why I love teaching people about GPTs, so that they can evolve into then workflows, then building agents. Like, it gives them access to some of these higher level skills that maybe they felt were unattainable at first glance. So, like we said, these are the foundational steps needed to
Yes,
truly understand all things AI.
correct.
Yeah. Okay. Just the last one I'm going to throw in there because it is one of my favorites. We call these signature GPTs. So think of building a legacy GPT of all your knowledge and skill sets, or choosing an expert advisor. When I first started working with you, you introduced me to Gino Wickman, who's an EOS. Has written many books, traction, and so on and so forth. So for me, I built an expert advisor, and it's my Gino Wickman in my pocket, right? So I was able to upload so much of his content from the internet or books that I had read, and then I can have conversations with him, but not just about the book, because I could do that by reading the book. I'm able to align his systems to my workplace and my role, which is really powerful. So he can answer my questions knowing that I work at ModelMind, knowing that I'm a trainer of AI. And so the alignment of taking an expert and aligning it to your preferences and context is really pretty exciting. So the signature GPTs are a fan favorite, that's for sure.
So I think that's really interesting. We've done training on EOS, like how to use EOS with AI for a while. And if you are looking at just rolling out EOS, it's a really, really powerful way to actually help your entire team get up to speed quickly with your specific information again, right? So you're also loading like your mission and values and all that kind of your what you do and why you do it and who your audience is and all that. So it basically defines who you are as a company, but then uses that framework to answer questions as they come up, which is a very, very powerful process. So we've seen that over and over. And if you go through our training, that's one of the GPTs you can create actually is your own EOS one and bring that back to your organization.
And then secretly, I have a Loren Horsager. What would Loren Horsager say to GPT as well? So you can tap into anyone, and as long as I can upload your speeches, I can upload some of your content that you've created, and then kind of prompt off of that in a GPT. So those are fun to make as well.
Now I'm concerned because this is my first hearing about this. So maybe it can do more work for me. So this is probably good. So
there you go.
As we're talking about these, and you have your 4 here again. So just to repeat, that's the optimizer, the dialogic, the team, and the signature. So I just want to have a little conversation on this. So all of these go together in some way, right? So it doesn't have to be one or the other. They could be 1 or 2 or all 4 of these, right? So I was just thinking about like the sales coach that I was talking about, that really covers all 4 of these. Or another one that we're talking about with a lot of people right now is how to build your own CFO agent or GPT. And what I think is interesting about that is it has to do these different capabilities, but we're still narrowing the context to say, this is what you're good at. I'm not going to go to my CFO agent and ask it a marketing question or how to write marketing content for the website. I might load a lot of the same data in there about who we are, what we do, and all that, right? But I'm going to have a very different context of how I want you to work with information, right? So in this case, I might say, hey, you need to go pull this data every week, and then we're going to do a compare to budget, and then we're going to have a dialogue section where it's now you pulled this, you give me a report, but now I want to dialogue with it to actually get down to the nitty gritty and understand more. This is where the memory conversation comes in, and this isn't probably quite there fully if you're just using like a GPT, but there's other ways to do this as well where the memory will stay. Because what I want to do then is have a dialogue and say, hey, why are our numbers off, last week versus budget? And then it's like, oh yeah, we hired someone new and, that changed these numbers, and, we closed this sale and that changed these numbers, and dialogue with it so that now it can pull that information in and remember that going forward. So now I come back in another week and why are these numbers off? It's like, well, it already knows that these things changed. And so ultimately, maybe we're not completely updating our budget, but it can use that information on the fly to actually analyze and understand how we got here better just like talking to a CFO would, as it's learning over time. And to be honest, probably better. So it's going to keep that in memory over time as you're learning, and it's learning and you're teaching it, and it's asking questions by the dialogue piece. But we're going to do all this in your voice with your information and the research part of it. So what are your thoughts on it? Like it's all these kind of combined to make some of those processes happen, right?
Yes. And so uh, my quick answer is in class, we talk a lot about should I build these as three separate GPTs or one complex GPT? And the answer is yes, right? Yes, because it really depends on your interaction style and what you want. Generally, I start with each individual set of instructions separate, and then once they become more fluent, they're able to combine those into. So even towards the end of our workshop, we build a 3-in-1 where we're actually combining three different agents into Copilot agents or GPTs into a singular. Now,
Yeah.
one thing we do too to kind of organize this idea of bringing in when you talk about a CFO may do several different tasks. Or I think of myself, I do a lot of research, I do curriculum development, I do training. So what I would do there is I could build three separate GPTs for my roles, but then I could use what's called projects in ChatGPT, where I could then activate and talk to each individual GPT within my project. So it's kind of like I have different roles within my job. I can grab these different tasks and roles. If you use the @ symbol within the chat box, it will give you a listing of your GPTs that you can choose from. So you can kind of hop from one to the other. Also really helps with memory because I can set context. Maybe you run three companies and you have three CFOs, right? You can build these projects out to stay within context for each specific agent or GPT that you build out. So we've got to be mindful of memory in those situations so that it doesn't get muddy or convoluted who you're talking to and what you want the task or behaviors to be for that specific prompt.
All right, let me just recap this because I didn't know this. Angela just taught me this today. So
Oh,
basically, we can go in, and we're going to talk ChatGPT specific, first of all. So we
okay.
can go into ChatGPT and I can create a custom GPT or multiple custom GPTs around context. And it is very important to have a narrow enough focus. So even though you're 100% right, you might have a CFO agent, but you might break that down into multiple um, because they're doing different types of tasks. But now I can then go into a project in GPT and I can chat with different agents in there. And all of those chats are then essentially stored in memory across all the other chats in that project, which are across these GPTs. So it's really sharing the information across them, even though it's using that one context every time as it's having that conversation, right?
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, well, this blew my mind, and I haven't got a chance to use it yet. So we were talking about some things I was trying to do, and I didn't even know that was possible. So that's fantastic. So I'm going to go try that after because I think that's a game changer in how you remember things. I think we talked last time about memory, and memory is just going to keep coming back as this critical thing in AI and how we think about it and how it's changing in all these ways. And this is just one of them where you can have a project that then sharing that memory across your different chats, even if it's just different, even if it's using different GPTs, which is fantastic.
Mhm.
Does that same feature exist in Copilot?
Yeah, I mean, they've really mimicked ChatGPT. So in Copilot, you have what are called notebooks, and you can add pages. And so what I see is generally speaking, ChatGPT comes out with it first, and then give it a month, Copilot's right behind. Because even in Copilot this week, they have a feature that says try GPT-5. So all of the new features that are available in ChatGPT with the Model 5, they're now allowing you to access in Microsoft. So not exactly as you just described it in ChatGPT, but the potential is there. And I want to say almost in
Okay.
Microsoft. So
Okay.
ask me again tomorrow. We'll see what happens.
That's how fast this is all changing. So
It
that's
is. It
fantastic.
is.
Let's talk about my favorite thing, agents. So give me your perspective on, like, we talk over and over about why learning how to prompt is so important, and then learning how to put that together to build out custom GPTs, custom Copilot agents. Why is that so important?
I feel like if you don't get on the train now and understand the basics, you're really going to be at a loss, and you're not going to take full advantage when your boss hands you an agent, because you're not, it's almost like, think of it as a calculator, right? If somebody hands you a calculator and you use it to add 2 plus 2, but then they hand you a scientific calculator, a graphing calculator, where, I mean, the sky's the limit what you could calculate and problems you could solve with a really complex machine. And so that's kind of how I see AI right now. People are stuck in 2 plus 2, and they have no idea the possibilities of what this machine can do, right? So the ground floor is so important to kind of get on board with, and just the comfortability. I just read an article that companies and leaders are actually encouraging people to use these AI for personal usage,
Mhm.
because they're finding that the adoption rate is so much faster if they're using them on not only on their personal time, but then they start using it in the workplace. So I just can't emphasize enough getting people an awareness and a comfortability in ChatGPT, so that we can use agents to their full capacity.
So I agree with everything you said, and I think it's really important that we're building for that for the future. But I will also say I think everything we're talking about you can do today, right? And you can have a huge impact today. We just see the impact that this is going to have in the next 3 months, 6 months, and it's going to be a lot bigger. And you have to have this foundation. If you don't know how to understand why did I get a bad answer, and how do I fix that, and how do I change my instructions to make that better, or my prompt to make that better, you're not going to be set up to actually work with agents that are. And when an agent goes wrong, how are you going to fix it? How are you going to know how to deal with that? But at the same time, this is all super valuable today, right? You can
Mhm.
go actually do something very, very valuable, both personally in your job, but also with your team or with clients or with external facing solutions, right? So this is the foundation, not just for agents, but for workflows as well. So
Mhm.
when you're building a workflow, how do you build up? A lot of times what we'll do is use a GPT, or it's called an assistant programmatically, but essentially the same thing, where we're building this up for this context and how to answer a question in workflow. So you need to understand that process, because then you can apply a lot of these other game changing solutions because you know how to do it.
Somebody in my last class called custom GPTs baby agents. And then we built
Yeah.
out a project where we added these agents, and they called it a baby agentic system. Like, it's the infancy of what's possible. But I am shocked day in and day out by the idea of my understanding and how it applies to what you're doing on an agent level. It's like we're having the same conversation.
Mhm.
And so you're right. It is happening right now, and people with little to no tech experience have access to this. I will say, though, I find that people tend to get frustrated in their first experience in building a custom GPT or an agent. So I just encourage you not to give up, and keep diving into this, because it is possible with just a little bit of content knowledge and knowing how to make it a truly efficient, effective tool for you.
Yep.
But it can be
Excellent.
frustrating.
This has been fantastic. I think this is a great conversation. I think it's so important to learn this. It is the stepping stone to the next steps in AI. Um, and how about, I know you have an exciting two prompts of the week this week. How about we jump into the prompt of the week?
Okay, so the reason I have two is because half of my day I spend typing and interacting with ChatGPT, and the other half of my day I spend talking and using voice mode. And so I wanted to do two versions, one using voice mode and one allowing you just to interact with your desktop. So this first one is really designed for that dialogic style where you're talking back and forth. And I wanted you to create a reflective AI coach. So imagine you had a leadership coach on call, one that asks powerful questions, challenges your assumptions, but also helps you clarify and think clearer about your concept. So here's the prompt, but I really challenge you, if you haven't tried voice mode yet, today is the day. I want you to engage voice mode and start by saying, you are my reflective coach. Your role is to help me think through leadership decisions by asking insightful questions, but then build the scenario. So ask it to, after asking 3 to 5 clarifying questions, then summarize the key tension I'm facing and keep going. So offer 1 to 2 reflective prompts to help me move forward. Always include your tone and your style and the personality that you would like, but really create this kind of workflow of a conversation that you would naturally have with another person. So that's my voice mode prompt. And then the second prompt is really tagging on to a conversation we had earlier, is the idea of this onboarding mentor. This is a great place to start by just organizing your knowledge and giving it to your employees to help them navigate the workplace. So imagine you're a new hire and you have a personal mentor who never gets tired of your questions, always explains things clearly, and could walk you through any tool, document, decision with ease. So here's your prompt. You are an onboarding mentor GPT. Your job is to help new hires get up to speed. You will explain team culture, point to key tools and documents, walk them through our onboarding tasks one at a time. Begin by asking their role and their first day goal. Keep your tone welcoming, clear, and helpful, like a friendly colleague. And this one, if you have Microsoft Copilot, you need to go make this right now, because the true treat of Microsoft is how all of your apps and documentation are already integrated. So it's so easy to grab it. ChatGPT does have some ways for you to connect to, say, your Microsoft platform or your Google platform, but Microsoft Copilot, they've made it too easy. Like, you need to go make this one right now for sure. Any thoughts on those GPTs?
I think this is interesting. So you're covering two of the different types. But more importantly, like as a business owner or a business leader, like this is so foundational and this was not hard. And let's face it, in most cases, we're going to have more instructions than that. You're going to go deeper, but you're going to take
Absolutely.
Angela's kind of guidelines and start. But you know what? A page or two, and you're going to have a pretty good GPT in most cases. And so this is such a foundational thing. It's just create it and now share it, right? So if you're building out like an HR agent, right, you can do this and have this up and running in faster than you can usually answer someone's questions, right? So if all the information is there, put your employee handbook online and put, some of the documentation that goes around that, and you have an HR agent that's going to answer 90% of the questions that come up potentially. It's really that easy to build some of these agents. And then as we get into more challenging solutions, take the CFO one again. Well, a lot of times the challenge is not necessarily in the prompts, but the challenge is in the setup of how we're getting the information and when we're getting the information and the memory around that information, right? And that's all happening. But if you start with some of these processes where it's really an information source, a guide, a tutorial, then it becomes a powerful platform to learn these capabilities. And then you're continue just adding things on, and you're building out more and more complex solutions as you go.
Even the process of building these with your team can be really powerful. It forces you to focus your content, right? It forces you to organize your knowledge or your data sets. What's old, what's new, what's current, what's relevant. So it kind of brings these conversations to the surface that can actually kind of clean up business in the process, which can be really powerful as well. So we
That's
talk a
interesting.
lot.
That's
We
interesting
talk.
because we see a lot of cases where people are rolling out Copilot and they realize that they haven't set permissions on stuff properly, and you're getting lots of content that's junk or old or whatever. And so there is some cleanup that has to happen if you're going to roll that out because of how you're going to do solutions like this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, great conversation today. Keep in mind, custom GPTs are your on-ramp to the real-world AI integration. Some of the things Loren talked about, like the agents, the workflows, this is your starting point. So they're fast to build, they're very flexible and easy to edit, but they help you develop the foundational skills you need as agents become more capable and connected. So whether you're starting with a small optimizer GPT or dreaming up your future signature assistant, now is the time to experiment. And remember, even though memory isn't live in GPTs yet, using them inside ChatGPT projects gives you that structure and continuity that you need. So good luck.
Excellent. I just want to call out a couple of things. So if you have been listening to this and you want to connect with us, we'd love to talk about this. I also wanted to invite you, if you want more time with Angela, she will be hosting a couple trainings coming up in Minneapolis as AI 101 and an AI 201. Next month we'll have a 301, which is our so 101 is our introduction. 201 is really what we talked about today, getting deep into creating custom GPTs and custom Copilot agents. And then our next classes will be coming out here in September around both workflows and how to build out workflows in your organization, as well as building out your own agents. And we're actually talking like not just Copilot agents, but deep agents. So we will have more conversations about that. Go to our website if you want to find out more information about signing up for those. One thing I will let you know is for anybody that wants to participate, we are now providing one free training for one person at every organization to go through our 101 class. We also have our 101 Copilot class. This one's online, so if you're not in Minneapolis right now, or I think we'll have some Florida ones offering here in the next couple of months again. If you're in another location and you want to go through the Copilot training, it's a 6-week, 1 hour a week program. So you can go to the website, sign up for that. And I think the next one starts here about September 11th, maybe. I can't remember. So feel free to reach out. And then if you need help, we also offer our AI 10X coaching program. And you get a lot more support around actually building out real solutions that will help you implement AI in your organization on a quarterly basis. So we'd love to talk to you about that. And yeah, hopefully you sign up. It's always good getting time with Angela. So thanks for the time today. And we are looking forward to one more thing. If you sign up for any of these classes, you get time to actually have office hours with Angela, which is a fantastic resource when you can come on and just ask her questions after class, because we know there's lots of things, lots of specifics that don't get covered in class. You go back and you try to do it. It's a very important part of the process is to have someone to ask those questions, help you get deeper as you're moving through the process. So that is included as part of our classes. So we'd love to have you as part of them. So thank you, Angela. This is a fantastic day, and it's so exciting to dig deeper on this. This is such a core part of what everybody needs to learn as they're going forward. Again, none of this is technical. This is for everybody, and we're always amazed when people go through the class how some of them will think they're very deep into this, and then they start to get into what you can do with custom GPTs and custom copilots, and they're just blown away that it's so much deeper than they expected, and we're still just scratching the surface. So it's an exciting step, but it's the first step.
Yeah, I really encourage you to join one of our classes. One of my focuses is meeting people where they're at, because we have such a variety of users in the room and we can really learn from each other. But I've had people who are logging on for the first time at 8 a.m. that morning, and by the end, they're just as leveled up as everybody else who's maybe been using it for a couple of years. So great opportunity to have some support along the way and have a community of people that are asking similar questions and are heading in the similar direction as you are. So definitely take advantage of one of our classes, and I hope to see you there. But until then, thanks for joining us today on the conversation, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for being part of the conversation with Model Mind AI. Until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and stay curious.